Hello and welcome to the in-news series of Drishti IAS. I am Pooja Divedi, and in this segment today we are going to analyze why the prices are getting higher and higher for petrol and diesel in India. This topic is important from the perspective of prelims as well as from the perspective of GS Mains Paper 3. So let's begin with the topics of discussion. First of all, we will talk about why news, then we will talk about the timeline of the rise of the prices, rise in the prices for fuels. We will also talk about the reasons, the taxation system for fuels in India. We will talk about the impacts of it on the general populace. We will also talk about the OECD, Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, and we will compare the different economies, basically what are the prices of fuels in different economies of OECD and India. We will also talk about the challenges, the way forward, and in the last of the segment, I am going to give you a mains-based question for answer writing practice. In the midst of the segment, I am going to ask you a pre-based question as well, for which if you know the answer, you can comment in the comment segment. So if we talk about why in news, here we will try to understand that the prices are getting higher and higher for petrol and diesel in India. And this is not a new trend. This trend is actually in observance since December. Alright. As you can see, this is an article from 9th of December 2020. And if we talk about right now, the prices are so high in Delhi that they are rupees 89 per litre for petrol in Delhi. And if we talk about Mumbai, it's approximately rupees 86 per litre. So if we talk about this, what is actually wrong, we will analyze it. But before that, let's talk about the timeline. So, if we talk about the coronavirus pandemic, when did it actually hit India in terms of lockdown? It hit India in the month of March 2020, and after that, so many restrictions were imposed when it comes to traveling, and of course, traveling not only domestically but also internationally. So, there were so many impositions of different practices for social distancing that people had nowhere to go, and that is why the prices of petrol, the crude oil, it crashed, and it crashed to such a limit that the prices for petrol and the general oil, it wasn't revised for a record 82 days. Yeah, here it is given for a record 82 days. Now, because of the imposition of so many restrictions when it comes to traveling, when people had nowhere to go, nowhere in the sense their entire transition, their entire traveling was stopped, and because of that, the demand for petrol was not a lot. So they were hit with double whammy. First of all, where to go, and because of where to go, the demand fell and they couldn't tap the benefit of the lower oil prices. Right? First is that. And if we talk about the oil marketing companies since November, first is that they couldn't tap the benefits, the citizens. Second, when the economy tried to get back on track after the lockdown got over, the recovery of the economy started to happen. The oil pricing companies, they increased the petrol and diesel prices since November 2020. And since then, there has been a higher trend. And if we talk about 2020 only, in 18 days, the petrol price had gone up by rupees 2.65 per litre, and diesel rate had also increased. And if we talk about today, you can see the prices that are given. Now, if we talk about why do consumers have to pay more? Because of decontrolled prices on fuels. This is a one-way street. Consumer will be at the negative end. He or she will receive the negative part of the increase or even decrease in the international prices of oil, in the sense that oil was initially regulated. Historically, it was regulated. That means it came under the regulation of the government. But in the year 2010, the government decided that they will not regulate the prices of petrol. That means they will not set the retail prices for petrol. It would be done by the oil marketing companies. And in the year 2014, the deregulation also the deregulation also got imposed on diesel. So if we talk about that, since then the oil marketing companies started revising the prices of oil in a fortnight. That means in 14 days. But on June 16, 2017, the revision of prices are being done on a daily basis. Now, to safeguard the consumers from any kind of fluctuation or stress on the oil because of the oil prices, this was done on a regular basis, that it could be seen as a stabilized practice. First is that. So because decontrolled pricing on fuel is happening, the oil marketing companies, in order to increase their profit margins, they have not actually let the consumers to get the benefits of the lower crude oil prices. First is that. And also, if we talk about the comparison with other countries, you can see India's chart in January. This has been a comparison between the same months of different years. January 2020 to 21, you can see the difference, the change. Of course, it has increased, whereas China, USA, Brazil and UK have not seen an increase up to that much. Now, if we talk about China, USA and Brazil, on an average, the citizens of these countries have been paying less. If we compare the month January of this year, and compare it from the month January of 2020. So you can see only in India this trend has been seen. Now, if we talk about the reasons, first is we have already talked about the decontrolled pricing. So that's that. And then global crude oil prices. First is that. So if we talk about global crude oil prices, the oil price depends on a lot of things. First is the global trend, the international pricing. Second is the freight charges. Third is the exchange rate between the Indian rupee and the US dollars. So all these factors actually affect the prices. But if we see, the price rise is not that much. So why are Indians paying more? Because of post-pandemic effects. We can see this as well. The country is trying to get into a V-shaped recovery. We have discussed about this. This is when the GDP has fell down, it has crashed to a low level, and again it is trying to recover. So this is a V-shaped recovery. In a graph, I can draw it for you. You can see here GDP, and this is time. Okay, so GDP goes like this, and then it will come down, and then it will again recover. So that is that. So if we talk about that, the post-pandemic effect, it is actually affecting the economy a lot. The oil prices a lot. In the sense, again, we are trying to get back on track. The factories and the air travel restrictions, these all have been not imposed after the lockdown up to that much of extent. So that is why when the economy is trying to get back on track, it will obviously try to demand more and more oil or more and more petrol and diesel. And that is what is causing the increase in demand, but the supply is not that much, because many of the OPEC countries, they are voluntarily not producing as much output as the demand needs to be met in order to control the pricing. There is a reason that OPEC countries are not doing so. So second is that because Brent crude, which was being traded at about $40 per barrel between June to October in the year 2020, and it had started rising in November, and it had gone past $60 per barrel. This is also another reason. The controlled production, we have already discussed how the OPEC countries are not doing much. They are not producing that much of output. And if we talk about OPEC, it's an intergovernmental organization. OPEC means Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. So it was formed in the year 1960. And if we talk about where, it was formed in Baghdad. And it's headquartered at Vienna, Austria. And if we talk about the founding members, they are Iran, Iraq, Kuwait at the Baghdad Conference, Saudi Arabia, and of course Venezuela. Alright, and now in the comment segment, you have to tell me how many members of OPEC are there. First is that, and secondly, is India a member of OECD or not? All right. So if we get to the taxation system on fuel, you can see this article, and it says, it's from May 7th, 2020. It says that India now has the highest taxes on fuel in the world. So taxation system, if we talk about, for this is an old picture, but here I have used it in order to make you understand what are all these taxes levied by the central government, the state government. All right. So if we talk about the pricing, the taxation structure for our petroleum, they are not under the purview of GST. So the government has a lot to maneuver in order to get more and more revenue from any kind of commodity. Petrol is or crude oil is the most, you can say, lucrative object. So if we talk about that, you can see this is the base price. Okay, the actual price. Then comes, after this taxation, it will increase. Of course, if we talk about excise duty, now this is levied by the central government. All right, in order to get revenue, central government. After that, many states, because prices of fuels depend on state to state, they get deferred. If we talk about UP, the price of petrol and diesel will be different from the price of Delhi and any other state. So if we talk about that, then comes VAT. Now VAT is imposed by the state government. Then comes another thing that is called dealers commission, and of course if we talk about another charge, that is the freight charge. So there are so many taxes which leads to the increase of the actual price that a person needs to incur in order to get 1 liter of petrol. So as you can see, if we talk about Delhi right now, the taxes are actually 180% in addition for petrol, and for diesel it's 141% of the base price in addition to all this. All right, if we move on and talk about the impacts, first of all, because of the hiking of the central excise duty and VAT, it has mopped away any kind of savings that a person had done throughout because of not consuming petrol. Because of the lockdown, they couldn't tap the benefits, and after the lockdown got over, they had to pay double the price, almost double the price, not exactly, but almost. And then negative margins for oil marketing companies. The dealers are saying, the oil marketing companies are saying that they cannot revise the entire pricing in accordance to the global oil price crash, because it would leave them dry with no margins. So second is that. And consumers with greater expenditure on travel will definitely feel the pinch of this entire hiking of the price, because they have to travel more, and because of the traveling they will need more and more petrol and diesel, and that will cause them to be at a loss. And if we talk about the industrial analysts, they say that because of the increase of the oil, the crude oil, if we talk about that, this had been compensated by the food inflation being on the decline basically. So it has been compensated for. But in the long run, if you want to know, in the long run, definitely any increase in the crude oil prices, petrol or diesel, it will be a chain effect. And after that, because of the commodities being transported from one place to another, per unit cost will also get increased because of the increase in the prices for diesel. Of course, that will also happen. And if we talk about the urban populace will be much more affected by the increase in the prices of petrol and diesel. But if we talk about the rural population, you can see that a weak monsoon may lead to rural India being hit, as farmers are forced to rely more on diesel-powered irrigation. Moving on, let's talk about OECD. I asked you a prelims-based question from here also. And an intergovernmental economic organization this is. It was founded to stimulate economic progress and world trade. It was founded in the year 1961. And it is headquartered at Paris, France. Alright, keep this in mind. Also, a very high human development index, all the countries who are included in it is there. and they are regarded as developed countries. But India is not a member, so your question has been answered here only. But a key economic partner. If we talk about the reports and indices by OECD, Government at a Glance 2017 report, International Migration Outlook, and OECD Better Life Index. So if we talk about the challenges, GST leaves very little space for the government to maneuver for the taxation, because if we talk about the commodities available for taxation, there is much less commodities available for taxation after the GST came into practice, and petrol is the single most, if you could say, if I dare say, is the single most lucrative item for any kind of imposition for taxes. See, if the prices are high of crude oil in the international market, the eventual negative impacts for the hike in price will pass on to the customers, the consumers. The oil marketing companies will of course try to increase their profit margins, and even if the prices are low, the government will try to tap benefits from that situation of low price of international crude oil by getting and raking up its revenue by putting more and more taxes on it. Eventually, again, the consumer will be at the losing side. And the growth challenge, of course, if we want to talk about the post-pandemic economy trying to get back on track, will demand more and more, and we cannot let go of this entire period because everybody wants to be a part of the growth. And lack of energy security infrastructure, in the sense that there was no proper energy security infrastructure in terms of storage. If India had proper physical infrastructure for storing crude oil when the prices were low, India could tap the benefits of it, because the government could have gotten the crude oil for a much lower price if it had got the proper storage system, right? And overt dependence on fossil fuels. India does have a lot of dependence on not only coal, but if we talk about energy demands, petrol products and diesel, these are also the things on which the Indian government depends upon a lot. And we need to, of course, switch on to more other substitutes which are less pollutive in nature and which could be easily targeted when it comes to getting its energy demands met. Less penetration of electric vehicles. Now, this is something the government is trying to do, but the penetration is not a lot. And if we talk about the way forward, we need a pragmatic taxation system. We need to make a taxation system which is not actually taxing on the customers when it comes to idealistically benefit them in times of need, right? And growth should be balanced with accordance to time. We need a more idealistic approach here when it comes to that growth should be there, but it should not be in such a manner that it will raise inequality, right? And of course, energy security, proper infrastructure should be developed in order some kind of pandemic again hits the country, hits the entire world, beg your pardon. India should be ready in order to meet its energy demand for the future in case of the prices of crude oil crashes, right? Proper infrastructure for storage in that time. And investment and innovation should be done in different substitute energy security, not only in energy security, but also other substitutes such as hydrocarbons and another fuels. All right. If we talk about the implementation of electronic vehicle scheme, we already have seen that government has undertaken many schemes, but this should be in a very rigorous mission mode. All right. So if we talk about a means-based question, kindly examine the impacts of India's huge dependence on imports to meet the energy demands, and also suggest measures to attain self-sufficiency in this regard. You have to write it down in 250 words. So that's it for today. Tomorrow we shall meet again with another segment. Until then, stay updated and thank you so much for watching.